It was a typical Friday evening. I had just wrapped up a long week at work, and as usual, Jessica had an event to attend. She was always busy with her career in marketing, constantly going to dinners, galas, and company functions. Tonight, she was attending another company event at a fancy restaurant in Austin, something I knew she had been looking forward to for weeks. Jessica had already gotten ready when I walked through the door, dressed in a sleek black dress that made her look absolutely stunning, her hair perfectly styled. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and told me not to wait up. "You know I'll be late." "It's a big event," she said, her tone full of excitement. I nodded, trying to smile, even though part of me felt a little envious of her social life. While she was out attending events with colleagues and clients, I was at home alone with nothing but the TV to keep me company. "Have fun." "I'll just catch up on some movies," I replied, pulling my robe tighter as I sank into the couch. Jessica gave me one last wave and left, the sound of the front door closing softly behind her. The night unfolded like any other. I settled into the couch, remote in hand, and started flipping through the channels. A few hours passed, and I felt my eyes growing heavier, the hum of the TV lulling me into a state of half-awareness. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. I had nearly fallen asleep on the couch when I noticed the message from Jessica. "Running a little late. I'll be home soon, just finishing up." I smiled, texted back, "Take your time. I'm good here." I had no reason to expect anything unusual, but what happened next would change everything. An hour later, I decided it was time to go pick her up. The restaurant was only about 20 minutes away, and by the time I arrived, I was already mentally preparing myself to hear all the details of the night, to hear about all the people she met and the work she did. I parked my car and walked toward the entrance of the restaurant. The large glass windows showed the soft glow of the warm, intimate atmosphere inside. It seemed like any other upscale night out, nothing special, nothing to worry about. Or so I thought. As I stepped through the door, I immediately scanned the room for Jessica. I saw her a few tables away, engaged in what seemed to be an animated conversation. But it was the person she was talking to that made my heart skip a beat. A man. Tall, with dark hair and a sharp suit. He stood far too close to Jessica, almost as if they were an item themselves. His hand rested casually on the small of her back, and she didn't seem to mind. In fact, she seemed to enjoy it, laughing at something he said. A knot formed in my stomach. I froze, standing just inside the entrance, unable to move. Jessica wasn't like this. She had always been professional, respectful. We had built our relationship on trust, on mutual understanding. But now, seeing her with this man, this stranger, my mind started racing. What was happening here? Why was she letting him touch her like that? I took a deep breath and tried to push the unsettling thoughts aside. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just how business people interacted. But deep down, I knew something felt off. I approached them slowly, trying to keep my composure. As I got closer, Jessica finally noticed me. Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Ethan," she said, her voice faltering. She quickly stepped away from the man, who smiled at me with a confident, almost smug expression. "Hey, Ethan," he greeted me without hesitation, completely unfazed. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. Jessica quickly stepped between us, trying to explain. "It's not what you think, Ethan. We were just talking, nothing more," she said, her voice shaky. I wanted to believe her, but something in her tone didn't sit right with me. The way she looked at me, it was almost like she was guilty, as though she knew she had crossed some line. I felt the room begin to close in around me. The floor seemed to tilt, my heart racing in my chest. I looked at the man again. He had the audacity to smile as if he had done nothing wrong. As if nothing had changed. I turned my gaze back to Jessica, searching her eyes for the truth, but all I could see was uncertainty. I don't understand, I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Jessica opened her mouth to say something more, but before she could, the man interrupted. "Look, it's just a friendly chat. No need to make this awkward, right?" he said, still smiling, his tone casual, almost dismissive. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my emotions in check. The trust one had in Jessica, our relationship, was slipping away piece by piece. The world I had known, the one where we were a team, seemed to shatter in an instant. I felt as if I were standing on the edge of something I couldn't control. I didn't know what to do, what to say. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I stood there, feeling a sharp pang in my chest, as the moment seemed to stretch endlessly. The man, this stranger, kept his smile, unfazed by the tension he had caused. And Jessica? She looked at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and confusion, as though she were caught in a lie she couldn't explain away. I don't know what to say, Jessica stammered, her voice small now, almost pleading. Ethan, please. It's not what you think. But how could it not be? I had just seen her laughing, her back pressed against his hand, a level of comfort I had never seen before. It felt like betrayal, like I had missed something right in front of me. I shook my head slowly, trying to fight the storm of emotions raging inside me. The last thing I wanted to do was make a scene, but everything inside me screamed to confront her, to demand answers, to understand what had happened. The man, who I now noticed was holding a glass of wine in one hand, shifted slightly, a clear sign he was no longer interested in the situation. He took a step back and casually adjusted his jacket. Maybe we'll leave you two to it, he said with a tone that almost mocked the intensity of the moment. Without another word, he walked away, leaving me standing there with Jessica, who looked even more distressed now that he was gone. Ethan, please, she said again, her voice now barely a whisper. I never meant for this to happen. I don't know how to explain it. I could feel my pulse quicken, my emotions shifting from confusion to anger. How long, Jessica? I finally asked, my voice low, barely controlled. How long have you been talking to him like this? She froze, her eyes wide, as though she hadn't expected me to ask that question. She opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. Ethan, it was just tonight, she said hurriedly, almost too quickly. I swear, it was nothing before this. We were just catching up. He's from work, and we were talking about some project. I tried to keep my breath steady, to understand what she was saying, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her words didn't match the reality of what I had seen. The way she looked at him, the way he touched her, it all screamed something deeper, something more than just talking. I wanted to ask more. I wanted to demand the truth, to pull everything out of her, piece by piece. But instead, I swallowed hard, the knot in my throat making it difficult to speak. Why didn't you tell me about him? I finally asked. Why wasn't I aware of this catching up? Jessica seemed to deflate, her body language collapsing into something I had never seen before, guilt, shame, and regret all wrapped into one. She avoided my gaze, looking down at the ground. I didn't think it would matter, she whispered. I didn't think it would make a difference. My heart ached. Did she really believe that? That it wouldn't matter? That I wouldn't care? The lack of transparency, the hidden conversation, all of it cut deeper than I could express. Jessica, I said, my voice thick, I thought we had a different kind of relationship. One where we talked about everything. So why couldn't you just tell me about him? I didn't want you to think anything was wrong, she replied, her voice soft. I didn't want to cause any problems between us. I've been so focused on work, on everything else, that I didn't see how it could hurt. I looked at her, trying to process the words that felt so hollow now. She was apologizing, but it didn't feel like an apology for what I had seen. It felt like an apology for being caught. I don't know what to think anymore, I said, the weight of my words hanging between us. We stood in silence for a moment. The restaurant seemed louder now, the clinking of glasses and chatter of other diners feeling distant and muffled. My mind was racing, but all I could focus on was the undeniable truth that had just unfolded. I didn't know who Jessica was in that moment. The trust we had built, the years we had spent together, all seemed to slip away like sand through my fingers. I had always prided myself on knowing my wife, on understanding her. But now, I felt like I was seeing a stranger standing in front of me. I ran my hands through my hair, frustrated, unable to find the right words. Ethan, Jessica said softly, stepping toward me, her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the image of her laughing with him, the way she had let him touch her, it replayed in my mind over and over again, like a video I couldn't pause. I don't know, Jessica, I muttered, my heart heavy. I don't know what to believe anymore. Her eyes searched mine, but there was nothing left for her to say that would fix this. I turned away, my hand gripping the doorframe as I stepped outside. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the coldness in my chest. Everything had changed. I spent the drive home in silence, the hum of the car's engine the only sound that filled the space. Jessica sat next to me, her face pale, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I could feel the weight of her presence, but it wasn't comforting, it was suffocating. I wanted to say something, to yell, to ask her what had happened, but no words seemed right. My thoughts were tangled, and no matter how much I tried to sort them out, the only thing that was clear was the void growing between us. When we pulled into the driveway, I cut the engine, but neither of us moved. The house loomed in front of us, warm lights shining through the windows, promising the comfort of home. But the thought of stepping inside felt foreign now. The space that once held our memories, our laughter, had become something else, something cold and unfamiliar. Ethan, please, Jessica whispered, breaking the silence that had stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Her voice trembled. We need to talk about this. I looked at her, the frustration bubbling inside me again. What is there to talk about, Jessica? I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I saw what I saw. I don't need an explanation to know what it looked like. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time since the incident, I saw vulnerability in her face. The confident woman I had known, the one who could handle anything thrown her way, was gone. In her place was someone who seemed lost, broken. I never meant for you to find out like this, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't think it would come to this, Ethan. I didn't think I'd hurt you. I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the ache in my chest. How could you not think this would hurt me, Jessica? I asked, the words coming out sharper than I intended. How could you not see that what you were doing was crossing a line? She shook her head, tears now freely streaming down her face. It wasn't like that, Ethan. It wasn't. I never wanted to betray you. I don't know. I got caught up in everything, in work, in trying to prove myself, and I lost sight of what really matters. I let out a bitter laugh. Is that what this was? You lost sight of what matters? Of us? The words felt like fire on my tongue, but I couldn't stop them. The anger was too much, too raw. You were right there with him, laughing, letting him touch you. You didn't lose sight of anything, Jessica. You made a choice. Her face fell at my words, and for a moment, I almost regretted saying them. But I couldn't take them back, not when the hurt was so deep. I'm sorry, she whispered again, her voice barely audible. I wish I could take it all back. But I can't. I never meant for this to happen. I stared out the window, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The quiet of the night outside seemed to mock me, as if the world was unaware of the storm brewing inside the car. What now, Jessica? I asked, my voice breaking this time. What do we do now? She didn't answer right away. She was too afraid, too unsure of how to fix what had been broken. And I couldn't blame her. I didn't know how to fix it either. For what felt like an eternity, we sat in the car, neither of us moving, both lost in our own thoughts. I was exhausted, mentally and emotionally drained. The trust one had spent years building with Jessica felt like it had crumbled in a matter of minutes. And the more I thought about it, the more it felt impossible to get it back. Finally, Jessica reached out, placing her hand on mine. At first, I pulled away, but she squeezed it gently, a silent plea for connection, for understanding. I don't know what to say to make it better, she said softly. I just want you to know that I never stopped loving you. I made a mistake, Ethan. A huge one. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. To make it right. I looked at her, my heart still pounding, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to reach out, to forgive her, to try to rebuild what we had. But another part of me, this new version of me, the one who had seen what I had seen tonight, couldn't just forget. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The words felt like a weight I could no longer carry. I understand, she replied quietly, her eyes full of regret. But I'm asking you to try. I know I've broken your trust, but I'm asking you to let me earn it back, if you'll let me. I didn't respond right away. What could I say? I was too overwhelmed, too hurt, too unsure of where we went from here. As we sat there in the silence, I realized that the life I had known with Jessica, the life I had thought was solid, was now filled with cracks. I didn't know how to move forward. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again.